are interested in knowing what all can be explored in terms of Indian knowledge system. If you are coming across this term for the first time, this is basically a reference to the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. We are talking about the indigenous, native, traditional knowledge systems from the land of Bharata. And many of us are of the opinion, or rather, many of us who are educated, so called educated with inverted commas, in the modern education system are of the opinion that all these itihasas or Puranas or stotras or any kind of Shastra literature, whatever it is, we just assume that it is literature. All of this is basically a story, basically a katha and nothing else. We are just learning different stories. My presentation has a different motive. You could probably say that I have a secret motive, or perhaps I'll openly talk about the uh, motive which I have, because as a student, eternal student, but part-time teacher or part-time facilitator in terms of Shastra studies, I have realized that many of the potential intellectual people who can get into this domain are not clear about the fact that all that we are exposed to in terms of the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, the knowledge heritage that we are handed down by our ancestors, is basically misunderstood. We are grossly miscalculating when it comes to the value of what we have been given. So this is an attempt to show you what we can work with. Mine will not be very technical, but yes, there will be references to technicalities. I will try to keep myself as sane as possible when it comes to the technical terms that I will be using and the concepts which I will be trying to present here. And I share my screen now. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. So the topic currently under consideration is the cosmic order of Vishnu. Perhaps you probably understood what was being presented here. Personally speaking, I did not understand the topic myself. First time when I was given this topic to talk about all of this for about an hour duration, I really did not understand what they were trying to say. Therefore, I was trying to nitpick at what all words are presented in the specific title itself. As a Sri Vaishnava, that is a person who is practicing the Vaishnava Sampradaya in terms of the Ramanujacharya tradition, immediately I am prompted to say the cosmic order of Vishnu has to be replaced by the name, the cosmic order of Sriman Narayana, insights from the Puranas. But then you see, the moment I say Sriman Narayana, it means Shri Sahita Narayana, that is Shri and Narayana together. Shri referring to the divine feminine, Narayana referring to the divine masculine, and both together are presented there. But then the question comes, see, when I say I am a Sri Vaishnava who is practicing in the Ramanuja tradition, immediately the question would be, the word Sri Vaishnava itself comes from the word Shri and Vishnu together. So Shri Sahita Vishnuhu Shri Vishnuhu Tasya Idam Matam Shri Vaishnava Matam. So the word Shri Vaishnava comes from the two words Shri and Vishnu, to which there is some kind of a grammatical suffix which is added, which makes it Shri Vaishnava. So immediately the question will come, why should I not use the word Vishnu when it comes to the topic? See, typically, when you are a person following a specific tradition, you are used to using certain terms to refer to certain concepts. So in the context of Sri Vaishnavas, we generally refer to the divine as Sriman Narayana and not Vishnu. That is why there was this confusion about what word I should use for the sake of the topic. Now that I have realized that I am a Sri Vaishnava and therefore I am associated with Vishnu himself directly, I have no problem with using the same title. Therefore, the title that we will be working with is the Cosmic Order of Vishnu, Insights from the Puranas. However, now that we have to look at the title itself, there are certain specific parts of the title which we have to consider when we are trying to understand the concepts. Firstly, the phrase cosmic order. Secondly, the word Vishnu itself. Thirdly, the word Puranas itself. Only when we break down everything and see individually what they mean or what relevance they have, we can understand how the whole actually makes sense. Whole meaning WHOLE, not HOLE. We are not talking about something that is not there. We are talking about something that is there. So whole, complete. The complete picture you can get only when you work with the parts. So we realize that I have something in mind. There is a caution from the beginning of the presentation itself. Generally, we assume that jnana, especially in the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, is organized in this form where neatly everything is separated. So each of these different topics are presented in their own domains. They are all in neatly arranged in silos. So everything is categorized neatly. Everything has a boundary. Nothing is touching anything else. Therefore, we assume that everything is a separate knowledge system. So Veda is separate, Vedanga is separate, Purana, Itihasa, they are all separate, Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, Darshana, Kala, all these are separate knowledge systems. Unfortunately, you are mistaken, or generally the audience is mistaken. This is because Jnana is actually organized in a very non-linear manner. Everything is referring to everything else. So recently you may have come across this movie. I think it received an Oscar, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, something like that. So that is the same thing that applies even to Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. Everything, everywhere, all at once. So this is how Jnana is. It is all non-linear and everything is connected to everything else. So this kind of connection can be represented in this way. Perhaps you might think because I've studied basic mathematics in school, and therefore in Venn diagrams, I know that this is how we can show it. Unfortunately, again, there are some mathematical limitations because beyond the second dimension of visualization, we find there are problems in Venn diagram based visualizations. Anyway, let us assume that we understand it, because if you look at the Venn diagram principle itself, you will notice there are even scientific publications which try to talk about how Venn diagrams cannot be used for representing things like this. Anyway, let us not go there. We have to understand that jnana is actually organized in a very different way compared to how we generally assume it to be organized. So there is this concept that is known as intertextuality. So intertextuality means a dialogue. I mean, I'll just give you the technical term which is associated with it. It says a dialogue and connections of a text with another text or other texts or types of text. Basically, what they're trying to say is everything, everywhere, all at once. Everything is connected to everything else. So, for example, if you were to take the Marvel universe or the DC universe, I mean, probably that is what is most popular these days. So, the DC verse or the Marvel universe, you will realize how there are so many different connections between each of these movies. So maybe something started with Batman, somewhere else there will be something to do with that subject, that specific concept in Wonder Woman. Again, something else will be connected with Aquaman. So everything is connected. So in the same way, we will find that in Shastra, that is in Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, everything is connected to everything else. So you will notice that something will be presented in the Purana. And if you want to understand that, you have to go to the Veda. If you want to go to the Veda and try to understand the meaning for it, you have to go to Vyakarana. If you want to understand what is there in the Vyakarana, then you have to go again back to some other subject, maybe Nirukta Shastra. So in the same way, everything will be connected to everything else. And therefore, what happens is, when you start studying even one subject, you will end up studying a lot of other subjects. So maybe you started studying only Itihasa or maybe the Purana. Maybe you just started with reading the Valmiki Ramayana. So the moment you start with Valmiki Ramayana, somewhere there will be some specific sarga which will talk about the Dharma Shastra. So for understanding that, you have to study Dharma Shastra. When you go to Dharma Shastra text and you start studying some text in the Dharma Shastra corpus of literature, we will realize that there is some other reference. They will start talking about Dandaniti. So Dandaniti is something that is associated with Rajaniti. So to understand that, again, you may have to go to something else, some other text. Maybe Mahabharata is talking about it. Maybe Arthashastra is talking about it. So you have to study Chanakya. And when you start studying Chanakya, you may get a reference which is associated with Kalpashastra. So in this way, everything will be connected to everything else. It is not just within one single textbook you will find, please refer to this section or that section. In fact, you will notice that one Shastra will directly refer to another Shastra without even giving you further details. So only those people who have studied that Shastra properly, or they have somehow gotten that wisdom from somewhere, only they are capable of giving you clarity regarding that specific subject. So that is the beauty of it. This is precisely why we need an Acharya. Of course, Swadhyaya is important, but Acharya is also equally important when it comes to Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. Unfortunately, we cannot give it up to artificial intelligence to take care of it. Here we are talking about Acharya, which is associated with divine intelligence, not artificial intelligence. No AI, only DI. So that is what is important. Anyway, this is the agenda right now, which we will have. We will break down the topic into cosmic order, Vishnu, and Purana as Purana Parichaya. And then we will go towards cosmic order of Vishnu, insights from the Puranas. See, that fourth topic, which I just mentioned as the title of this presentation, will not be directly going towards the Katha itself. I will give you certain ideas because this is only referring to the insights from the Puranas. The intention is not to give you entire summaries of chapters. If I were to give you entire summaries of chapters, then there is no necessary. You can take Gita Press Gorakhpur, the editions, and you will find that in the index itself. That is not necessary for us. What is important is the core concepts. What is the core theme with which we can get inspired, and we can also pursue the study of these subjects on our own or with the guidance of an Acharya or any kind of a researcher at least. So I will be talking about all of these from the perspective of a researcher and an eternal student myself. Therefore, let us enter. Of course, finally, we will have conclusion. So when we talk about cosmic order, I'll be talking about two ideas. That is, Vishnu is equal to Rita. And the second is the basic idea behind cosmic order. So the moment I hear the word cosmic order, or anybody who has studied the basic principles associated with Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, immediately they are reminded of the word Rita, Ritam. So there is this word called Ritam. So the moment you want to understand this word Ritam, you may have to go to certain Kosha Granthas. That is, you want to go and check out the meaning by referring to certain texts which give you the entire descriptions about each word's possible etymology, as well as the different kinds of contexts in which these words are used. So for example, when you see the word Rita, there is this word which is given as the meaning Uncha Shila from Dharma Shastra, Jala, water directly, Satya meaning truth, Karma Phala, that is the result, the consequences of any action. There is also a reference to Vishnu himself. Then there is a reference to Surya Deva, and then Parabrahma, that is the ultimate supreme divine. And then there is a reference to Satyachara, the practice of Satya, Rudra, the Deva, that is the Shiva concept. And then we have the reference to Yajna. There is even a reference to a Rishi who is associated with Agni. So when I say the word Rita, these are all the possible meanings. So immediately the question would be, which Rita am I referring to? So generally the word Rita here refers to cosmic law, right? Nowhere do I mention anything related to cosmic law. Here we should understand that Satya or Satyachara has to be referred to as cosmic law. See, Rita is cosmic law, I understand. But how is it related to Satya? At the level of human beings, whatever you consider to be law, that is societal law, or that is associated with truthfulness, that is Satya. At the level of the universe, at the level of the cosmos itself, there you see something related to Rita. So whatever is Dharma at the level of human beings, it is Satya. Whatever is Dharma that is at the level of the cosmos, that is called Rita. Of course, there are lots of other concepts which are interrelated here. I wish not to go deep into it because they themselves will take up a lot of time for us, and then we will be left with no time for discussing the current topic itself. When it is talking about all of this is presented in the Shabda Kalpadruma, it is a Kosha Grantha. If you want, you can check the text itself. There you will find all these references. While talking about Rita, when it is equivalent to Vishnu, there is a very interesting reference in the Mahabharata. Bhagavan Vasudevascha Kirtyate Etra Sanatanaha Sahi Satyam Ritanchaiva Pavitram Punyamevacha Shashvatam Brahma Paramam Dhruvan Jyotis Sanatanam. So Vishnu, Narayana, Hari, whatever it is that you call him, is the ultimate Rita himself. He is Satya and Rita. So referring to him as Rita only implies that he is Dharma itself. So he is Bhagavan Vasudevascha Kirtyate Etra Sanatanaha. He is eternal. Sahi Satyam Ritam Chaiva. He is Satya. He is Ritam. He is Pavitra. He is all eternally pure. Punyameva. He is Punya itself. Shashvatam, again Sanatanaha, Shashvatam, he is eternal. Brahma, he is the ultimate divine. Paramam, he is the, again, supreme. Dhruvam, he is always steadfast. Jyotihi, he is that light. Sanatanam, again, eternal. So he is the eternal light. So when they say he is Dhruvam, see the word Dhruva is used here very strategically. We should understand. The moment we hear the word Dhruva, immediately we'll go to Purana and say, yes, this is the reference to that Bhakta who was Dhruva, who was extremely steadfast in his approach towards Sriman Narayana when it comes to his bhakti. And Narada was his teacher. All that you will remember. But the moment we see Dhruva itself, it is actually a concept. Dhruva referring to steadfastness, something that does not change, something that remains stationary. Stationary, of course, it's all, when you go to physics, it will be relative. But in this context, when I say steadfast, steady, it refers to Sriman Narayana engaging with the universe without having any sense of exhaustion, constantly engaging in it. That is cosmic law. That is a reference to cosmic law, where there is no such thing as exhaustion. Everything continues without having any disturbance, without having any what you call pause or a break in the entire process. So that is why Vishnu himself is considered to be equivalent to Rita. So the cosmic law of Vishnu is like what you call repetition of the same word. It is like what you call Vishnu of Vishnu or cosmic law of cosmic law. Both are the same, right? Therefore, I can even replace that word with this. So this way, it seems like there is some kind of repetition. So when we move forward, when we try to understand, then what is the basic idea of rhythm? To simplify everything, this is what the cosmic law is. Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. This kind of a repetition. This kind of a process is what is generally assumed to be a reference to that kind of cosmic order. This cosmic order, I have simplified. There are many other steps which are happening. I do not want to go deep into it. For example, if you go to the Shaiva Sampradaya or the Shakta Sampradaya, they will also add two more. They will say that it is not just Srishti, Sthiti and Laya. There are also two other elements which are also included here. I will not go there. It will complicate the entire process of delineation. So let us just stick to these three elements, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. If you are interested in knowing what are the other two elements, that is, I think it is Anugraha and Tirodhana. If you want to go, you have to check with the Kashmir Shaiva tradition or the Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, as well as the Shakta Tantra tradition. You will find that these two other extra elements are also mentioned as part of the entire concept of Rita. So Srishti, Sthiti and Laya, when it comes to the general understanding, we realize that Srishti is something related to manifestation. When I say manifestation, it is not creation. What is creation? Creation means something is not there, suddenly it comes. There is no raw material. So from zero, you created infinity. No, that is not how it works. There was something already, raw material already existed. It only transformed in its form. There is only a transformation in its state. It is like originally there was air. From the gaseous state, I changed it into water, maybe liquid state. Then again, I froze it, it became solid state. It became something like ice. So steam became water, water became ice. Or ice became water, water became steam. So in this way, there is some transformation in the state. It is not something like from out of nothing, I create something new, something that did not even exist. According to Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, the raw material always exists. And that raw material becomes the final product. And that final product again goes back to its original raw material state. So Srishti is that movement from the raw material state to final product. Sthiti is basically the maintenance of that specific product. And then Laya is basically reverting back to its original raw material state. So Laya is not destruction. Srishti is not creation. Srishti is basically manifestation. Laya is basically dissolution. So we understand that there are certain specific terms which are being used in English. Because of this translation problem, we misunderstand what the Shastra is even trying to tell us. Srishti does not even mean that there is creation. Srishti means it is just changing in its form. That is what the word itself means. Laya does not mean destruction. Laya means it is dissolution, dissolving from one state to another state. Sthiti is that maintenance. So this Srishti, Sthiti, Laya is the basic idea behind cosmic order, that Rita that is associated with the divine. And when we talk about this Srishti, Sthiti and Laya concept, immediately we should understand that this is something that is very closely associated with the Sankhya Shastra. So if you are someone who is already familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, you probably have come across this word Sankhya. And if you have already studied the basics of Darshana or some kind of Vedanta, any of these subjects, you are already familiar with Sankhya Shastra also. We realize that in the Bhagavata Purana, one of the avatars of Sriman Narayana is called Kapila. Kapila is the same person who is directly involved in the Bhasmikarana, that is the burning away of the sons of Sagara when they come and mistake him for stealing the Ashwamedha Yaga's Ashwa. So, this same Kapila is the one who is considered to be the Pravartaka, that is, he is the first person who started giving us the concepts of Sankhya Shastra. This Sankhya Shastra is the basis for Yoga Shastra. So this Kapila, who is considered to be an avatar of Sriman Narayana, he tries to establish how the Triguna theory. So he is talking about how in Srishti, or rather, when you take the raw material, all the three gunas, that is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, these three gunas are in some state of balance. They are in a state of harmony. Therefore, everything is in the unmanifest stage. So when there is an imbalance, there is some kind of a manifestation. So when everything is in an unmanifest Avyakta stage, it is all in balance. All the gunas are in balance. The moment the gunas are facing imbalance, immediately Srishti begins. And then Srishti, when it is completed, then it is maintained for a while. And later, again, when the Trigunas, all the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas wants to come back to its original state, where everything is in balance, immediately it goes towards Laya. Again, it becomes Avyakta. So in Srishti and Sthiti, it is Vyakta stage. In Laya, it becomes Avyakta stage. So from Laya, it moves towards Srishti, towards Sthiti. So it becomes more manifest. From Srishti, it moves towards Sthiti and towards Laya, it becomes more Avyakta. I hope this is somewhat clear. So this Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas Guna, they are playing games with each other. And this kind of a game is what is leading us towards Srishti, towards Sthiti, and eventually back to Laya. Of course, if you are someone who is interested in understanding the molecular level understanding of states of matter, you will realize that when there is more energy, all the molecules are running here and there. So that is something like Srishti. In the moment everything is calming down, everything wants to stay in a very low energetic state, maybe at absolute zero, that is Laya, something like that. Of course, I'm not saying that it is the same. It is something, if you want to visualize it, you can visualize it in that form. Anyway, now we move to the next stage, that is, we want to understand Vishnu himself. We would like to understand the identity of Vishnu. So when you go back to the Shabda Kalpadruma, again, the word Vishnu, when it comes to the Veda, there are different identities, or rather different people or entities who are directly associated with the word Vishnu. So, for example, Vishnu is considered to be Agni. In one place, in one mantra, somewhere, you will notice that the word Vishnu actually refers to Agni. In another place, the word Vishnu is used in the context of Shuddha, that is pure. And then in another place, there are certain devatas. So there are different devatas, Adityas, Maruts, Rudras, Vasus, and so on. So one of these Vasu devatas is considered to be Vishnu. And then elsewhere, you will see that there is one Dharmashastra Grantha, which was composed by a rishi by the name of Vishnu. So you see, there are so many Dharmashastra Granthas. Everybody thinks that only Manu is the one who is the major Dharmashastra Kara. There is no other Dharmashastra Grantha, no other Dharmashastra Kara. Actually, Manu is one of the most well-known Dharmashastra Karas. We have other Dharmashastra Karas also. We have Vishnu, we have Apastamba, we have Bodhayana, and so on. There are so many rishis who are given as Dharmashastra texts. So it is important to know that also. Anyway, one of these Dharmashastra Grantha Kartas is known as Vishnu, and therefore people think that it is that Vishnu. Elsewhere, you will see that Vishnu is considered to be a Brahma Rupa Vishesha. Brahma Rupa Vishesha meaning it is a reference to a kind of a form taken by Brahman itself. Elsewhere, it is a reference to Narayana himself. But then we need to understand, why are we even talking about Vishnu? What is the meaning? What is the meaning behind the word Vishnu? So there are certain definitions or etymologies which are given. Deveshti Vyapnoti Vishwam Yaha, one who is spreading everywhere everywhere in the universe is known as Vishnu. Veshati, Sinchati, Apyayate, Vishwam Va. So one who is entering into the universe, or he is spreading the universe, something like that. He is uh, what you call sprinkling in the universe, meaning he's spreading everywhere, he's entering into everything. Vishnati Viyunakti Bhaktan Maya Pasaranena Samsarad Itiva. One who is taking away all the bhaktas away from samsara. He is called Vishnu. Vishati Sarva Bhutani, Vishanti Sarva Bhutani, Atra Itiva. One who enters into all beings, or beings enter into this. Therefore, he is known as Vishnu. So there are different etymologies which are given for the word Vishnu itself. Of course, I'm not giving you all details. If you go deep, you will realize that there is a lot of things that you can work on, but I'm not going in too deep. Again, this also you can find in the Shabda Kalpadruma, is another Kosha Grantha. Anyway, now we need to go to the third word or the third part of this entire topic. Purana Parichaya, the word Purana itself. So here we will be looking at enumeration of Puranas, categorization in Garuda Purana. Then we'll see the categorization again in the Garuda Purana based on certain value system. And then there is value system, meaning there are certain scale. There is a scale which is mentioned in the Garuda Purana. Then of course there will be certain contradicting views in Shiva Purana, which we will be talking about. So if you are someone who has learned the basics of Purana, you probably know the shloka by heart. This is from the Devi Bhagavata Purana. There is the shloka which tries to enumerate all the Puranas based on the first letter, the starting letter. Madvayam, Tadvayam, Chaiva, Bratrayam, Vachatuštayam, Manapalinga, Puskani, Puranani, Prachakshate. If you want to know what are the different Puranas, there are 18 Puranas, 18 Maha Puranas. They are enumerated like this. Madvayam, starting with the letter Ma, there are two. Matsya Puranam, Markandeya Puranam. Bhadvayam, there are two Puranas starting with the letter Bha. Bhagavata Puranam, Bhavishya Puranam. And then Bratrayam, three Puranas starting with the letter Bra. Brahma Puranam, Brahmanda Puranam, Brahma Vaivarta Puranam. Vachatuštayam, there are four Puranas starting with the letter Va. Vishnu Puranam, Vayu Puranam, Varaha Puranam, Vamana Puranam. Anapalinga Puskani. This is like a short form. It is an abbreviation of all the first letters of different. It's like a miscellaneous folder in our computer. Whenever we don't know where to put certain things, we will put it in a miscellaneous folder. In the same way here also, Anapalinga Puskani. A referring to Agni Purana, Na referring to Narada Purana, Pa referring to Padma Purana, Ling referring to Linga Purana, Garuda Purana starts with the letter Ga, Kurma Purana starting with Ku, and Ska for Skanda Purana. So all of this is enumerated in the Devi Bhagavata Purana. Of course, this is not the same order in which you have to study it, nor is this some kind of order of importance. It's like a way to remember. It is like a short form. If you want, you can call it this a memory technique. It is if you are interested in knowing more about this, you will find that in Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, we have several memory techniques like this. It is basically a method to make sure that we don't forget any of this. Mnemonics, I believe. So that's how we study. These are all mnemonics. Anyway, in the Garuda Purana, there is a very interesting categorization of the Puranas based on the gunas, Satvika, Rajasa, and Tamasa. So we see there are certain shlokas, and there you will notice that these are the 6 Puranas which are considered to be Satvika in nature. Bhagavata Purana, Vishnu Purana, Garuda Purana, Matsya Purana, Kurma Purana, and Vayu Purana. Because these 6 are mentioned in this order. That is why I have mentioned it in the same order. So starting with Bhagavata, ending with Vayu Purana. So you might be thinking, why is it called Sattva Guna, which is dominant in these Puranas? Perhaps it is because there is some kind of element associated with Sattva Guna. We will see what they are trying to say soon. Anyway, later, immediately following the list of Puranas which are Sattvika in nature, we have the Puranas which have Rajas as the dominant nature. We see these are the Puranas which are considered to be Rajasika Puranas. Skanda Purana, Padma Purana, Vamana Purana, Varaha Purana, Agni Purana, and Bhavishya Purana. These are the 6 Puranas which have Rajas as a dominant one. But then obviously you will be interested in knowing what is Tamas dominant Purana. Of course, again, that list is also given. We have Brahmanda Purana, Linga Purana, Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Markandeya Purana. Again, there is Brahma Purana and something interesting, Aditya Purana. If you look at the list which was presented earlier, somewhere we also saw that there is Narada Purana. The Narada Purana, I think this Narada Purana is not mentioned here. If you look at the previous list, no Narada Purana here. In the Rajasa Puranas, we don't see Narada Purana. Again, here also Tamasa Purana, we don't see Narada Purana. So I really do not know how to see if this is a synonym for Narada Purana, but it does not matter. What is important is to know that this kind of a list exists, this kind of a categorization exists in the Puranas. But then there is not just a Purana, these are called Maha Puranas. There are also some sub Puranas, which are of lesser importance, but also equally necessary to understand our Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. These are called Upa Puranas. So these Upa Puranas again are listed according to Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna as well. In the Garuda Purana, we see Vishnu Dharmottara Upa Purana, Tantra Upa Purana, Bhagavata Upa Purana, Narasimha Upa Purana, Vayu Upa Purana, Hamsa Upa Purana, which are Sattvika Upa Puranas. In the Rajasa Upa Puranas, we have Bhavishottara, Brihan Narada, Yama Narada Samvada, Laghu Narada, Vinayaka, and Brihad Brahmanda Upa Puranas. Again, in the Tamo Guna list, we have Bhagavata, Shiva, Nandi, Pashupati, Renuka, and Bhairava. So we see that there is some kind of a repetition of the word Bhagavata Upapurana. I'm really not sure what it actually is. Maybe if somebody is interested in doing research and trying to trace out these different manuscripts, you can also explore. These are all different scopes. I'm not saying that the research is yet to be done. Perhaps it is still yet to be done. You can search. You can find certain interesting ideas coming up there. Anyway, this is a list which I'm not going to touch upon later. It is a list. I'm just saying that this list exists. Anyway, this list of Mahapuranas, which are presented in the Garuda Purana, especially in the context of the Sattvika Puranas, again there is a sub-classification. There is a Uttama Sattvika Purana, Madhyama Sattvika Purana, and Adhama Sattvika Purana. So there is even a shloka which tries to talk about Srimad Bhagavata, Vishnu Purana, and Garuda Puranas being Uttama in terms of Sattva-guna, Vayu Purana being Madhyama in terms of Sattva-guna, and Matsya Purana and Kurma Purana being Adhama in terms of Sattva-guna. That does not mean that you should not study them, okay? It just means that it is some kind of a classification which they are giving. We will know why there is this classification. I will only focus on Srimad Bhagavatam as we move forward. That is why I have given you this alert. Because it is the Uttama Sattva Guna nature, we will only be focusing on the Bhagavata Purana. As we move forward, we realize that there is some kind of a contradicting view in the Shiva Purana. And what is this contradicting view? What they are trying to say in the Shiva Purana is that, they are saying that those Puranas which are associated with Brahma, Brahmadeva, Chaturmukha Brahma, Brahmaji, that is a Rajoguna dominant Purana, according to Shiva Purana. Garuda Purana accepts that this is also Rajasika Purana. But according to Garuda Purana, those Puranas which are associated with Vishnu are Sattvika Puranas. And those Puranas associated with Shiva or Rudra, those are Tamasika Puranas. But Shiva Purana disagrees. It says that those which are seemingly Sattvika are actually Tamasika. Those which are seemingly Tamasika are actually Sattvika in nature. That is, Vishnu on the outside seems like Sattvika, but on the inside is Tamasika. Shiva on the outside seems Tamasika on the outside, but Sattvika on the inside. So this kind of some problem comes in. There's some kind of a confusion. This is where we realize that there is a clarification in the Matsya Purana. That is, according to the Devata, which is mentioned as a dominant one in that Purana, there is a classification. So the Puranas which have Vishnu as the main Devata are called Sattvika. The Puranas where Brahma is the main Devata are Rajasika in nature. The Puranas where Agni or Shiva are dominant are called Tamasika Puranas. Therefore, we realize that this is some kind of a tussle between who gains the title that they are Sattvika by nature. So something like Shaiva and Vaishnava struggle, which happened even in the Purana stage in terms of classifying the Puranas. I'm not saying that this is right and this is wrong. I'm only telling you that this kind of a scenario existed and still does exist. Still, the Shaivas seem to consider the Puranas with Shiva as the dominant one as the Sattvika Puranas. The Vaishnavas seem to consider that Vishnu being the dominant one in the Sattvika Purana. So it does not matter. We have to understand that irrespective of all of these different confusions, based on which tradition you follow, you will have certain leads. So based on the most popular traditional approach, we can consider that the Vishnu-based Puranas are Sattvika in nature for the sake of this presentation. I am not trying to establish that one Devata is superior to another Devata. I am not trying to establish that these Puranas are Sattvika definitely and these Puranas are Tamasika definitely. That is not my intention. My intention is to only give you these perspectives as existent in the research. That's all. Anyway, now we will move to the main topic of the day. Cosmic order of Vishnu, insights from the Puranas. So here we need to again work on two important ideas. Mahapurana Lakshana and cosmic order in the Bhagavata Purana. Of course, now you know the reason why I have chosen Bhagavata Purana as the major one for exploration for this presentation. If I were to take any other Purana, then there will be some kind of a tussle between some people saying, why have you chosen this Purana? Why didn't you choose that Purana? Now I have clarified very clearly based on the internal evidence that I have a specific reason why I have chosen Bhagavata Purana. There is a statement regarding what are the different properties associated with the Mahapurana. So generally, if you take the properties associated with the Purana, they say that there are 5 Lakshanas. Puranam Pancha Lakshanam, Sargascha, Pratisargascha, Vamsho Manvantarani Vai. Then we have this specific statement which tries to establish there are 5 different Lakshanas. When we talk about these 5 Lakshanas, there seems to be some kind of a limitation. But the Bhagavata Purana tries to clarify, saying that there are not just 5 Lakshanas. Lakshana meaning properties, qualities which are associated with anything. So any kind of an object which you want to define is called a Lakshya. What are the properties you want to attribute to it? How do you want to define it? These are called Lakshana. So there is a Lakshya and there is a Lakshana. Always in Shastra, there will be this kind of an approach. Whenever we want to talk about something, we will try to first keep that as the target, that is the Lakshya, and we will try to define what it is. So when I say, for example, I'm saying the word Deva, what is this Deva? You have to define. Say, for example, I say the word Guna. What is Guna? So every single word will be defined before we move forward. That is the approach of Shastra. If you start studying Shastra properly, that is, if you start doing any kind of adhyayana of any Shastra, say, for example, you are starting to study Vedanta, or you want to study Nyaya Shastra, or you want to study Ayurveda. The moment you start studying any Shastra, the first few chapters will only be trying to clarify the technical terminologies associated with that subject or that text at least. So in that technical terminologies, all those terms will be defined. And that definition is called a Lakshana Vakya. So they will give you all the Lakshanas and all the Lakshyas will be very clear. So the first one lesson or the first 2 lessons in any subject, any Shastra, in any Shastra Grantha will only be definitions. So today in the modern times, when we try to study any subject, we see that the first line in the paragraph will be the definition in any chapter. Or maybe towards the end of the textbook, there will be a glossary section. In traditional Shastra Adhyayana, the first or the second or first and second chapters will be only talking about these Lakshanas. They will only talk about these definitions. So the beauty of it is, you don't need to search for it anywhere. So if the Acharya or the Upadhyaya is going to talk about a term, even before that term comes up in the next chapter, where they are going to define how it is part of the worldview, it will all be defined already in the first or the second chapters. Similarly, here, the Srimad Bhagavata Purana, there is one interesting shloka which gives you the 10 Lakshanas associated with Mahapuranas. So we already seen those 18 Mahapuranas, right? So starting with Bhagavatam till that Aditya Purana, that list, those 3 slides I showed you, where there are Sattvika Puranas, Rajasika Puranas, and the Tamasika Puranas, there are 18 in number. So those 18 Puranas, if you are going to talk about them, what makes them stand out? What is the defining feature of these 18 Mahapuranas? That is what is given here. Atra Sargo Visargashta Sthanam Poshanam Utayaha Manvantareshanu Katha Nirodho Mukti Rashraya. These are the 10 Lakshanas, the 10 important properties which make these Mahapuranas stand out from the crowd. So what are these defining, distinguishing features? We will see that this is presented in the following way. Sarga is basically referring to Sukshma Srishti, subtle creation. Visarga is gross Srishti, that is Thula Srishti. Sthana is something to do with law and order, which is ensured by Bhagavan. So immediately you might think this is the cosmic law. No. We will see what we're talking about soon. There is something called Poshana, which is the 4th one. It is basically protection, welfare of all. So when you look at certain texts, some texts will have commentaries or explanatory notes which are given by other acharyas. For example, the Yoga Sutra of Maharshi Patanjali has a commentary by Vyasa. There is a commentary by Shankaracharya. There is a commentary by so many different people. So when you go to the Brahma Sutras, one of the most popular known commentaries is by Adi Shankaracharya. Then we have a commentary by Ramanujacharya. Then we have a commentary by Madhvacharya, and so on in different Vedantic traditions. If you go to different Shastras, you will find each Grantha will have certain dedicated commentaries. Commentaries are basically simple explanations. They may be very short, like maybe a few phrases, that is 2 or 3 lines long. Sometimes it can even go to pages and pages. So there can even be 5 or 6 pages of explanations just for one single sentence. So when you look at this, elsewhere in one of the commentaries, Bhagavata Purana also has commentaries. There is one interesting commentary which was written by Sridhara Swami. I think it is called Bhavartha Deepika. There in Bhavartha Deepika, this Poshana is also called Vritti or Raksha. Elsewhere, the next one, that is the next Lakshana, is Uti. Uti means you have this desire for karma, material desire for karmas. So this is also known as Hetu according to the Bhavartha Deepika. Then what about Manvantara? Manvantara is basically a reference to the period, time period of Manus, the history of that era and all that. Then the 7th one is called Ishanu Katha. Isha referring to Ishvara. So here in this context, Ishvara means Bhagavan. So this is accounts of the deeds of Bhagavan, with different things that Bhagavan was engaging in. That is Sriman Narayana's activities. This is also known as Vamshanucharita according to the Bhavartha Deepika. Nirodha, the 8th one, this physical annihilation within a samstha. So that is what is mentioned. That is associated with Pralaya. Mukti, of course, Moksha, which is also known as, which is also under the section known as Samstha according to Bhavartha Deepika. The last one, the 10th one is called Ashraya. That is the last resort of the universe or the ultimate reality. This is known as Apashraya according to Bhavartha Deepika. So when you look at the Bhagavata Purana itself, the Bhagavata Purana is categorized into 12 different sections. Each section is called a skandha. For example, if you go to the Valmiki Ramayana, you will see that the overall kind of categorization is in the form of the 7 different kandas. Within each kanda, there will be chapters. Each chapter is called a sarga. In the same way, when you go to the Mahabharata, you will notice that the sections are called parva, and within each parva, there will be adhyayas. Within each parva, there will be smaller parvas and there will be adhyayas also. In the same way, when you go to the Bhagavata Purana, you will notice that there are supposed to be 12 different major sections. They are called skandhas. Within each skandha, you will have adhyayas. So from the 3rd skandha up until the 12th skandha, you see that there is some kind of a correlation between each of these different lakshanas according to the Bhavartha Deepika of Sridhara Swami. So this kind of an interpretation is presented in the Bhagavata Purana with the Bhagavata Purana by G.V. Tagare, I believe that's his name. This is a book which was published a few years ago. So there they have tried to explain this. If you want, you can read more about it there. There's an entire dedicated chapter on this Bhagavata Purana with 10 characteristic topics. That's a very interesting read. So anyway, coming back to this subject here, Mahapurana Lakshana, we realize that we have to work with Srishti, Sthiti and Laya. Notice that here the 3rd, 4th chapters are directly associated with Srishti. 5th and 6th skandhas, sorry, not chapters, skandhas. The 5th and 6th skandhas are directly associated with Sthiti, and the 10th skandha seems like it is associated directly with Laya. So we see Srishti 3 and 4, Sthiti 5 and 6, Laya number 10. So this is based on that reference. But please remember that when you take up the Bhagavata Purana, you will not see a direct correlation. Sometimes there will be certain chapters containing concepts which are not directly associated with this specific subject. Say, for example, I say 3 and 4 are associated with Srishti. It does not mean that it will only be dedicated to Srishti. There will be other subjects as well. Say, for example, I say that something is associated with Laya. It does not mean that Laya will only be found in the 10th skandha. Sometimes you will find Laya-related topics in other skandhas as well. So this kind of observation is also made by people who have studied the Bhagavata Purana. But for the sake of our understanding, very simplistic exploration, we will just consider Srishti associated with 3 and 4, Sthiti associated with 5 and 6, and Laya associated with the 10th skandha. So when you take up the Srishti part in the Bhagavata Purana, we see that there is something called Sarga. That Sarga section, we see that it is Alaukika, meaning there are 2 types of Srishtis. One is alaukika, another is laukika. Alaukika meaning that which is cosmic, that is associated with the divine. It is not associated with this universe which is observable with our sense organs. Laukika is basically associated with the srishti that can be observed with the sense organs. That is, alaukika is imperceptible with the human sense organs. Laukika is perceptible by the human sense organs. Anyway, when you talk about alaukika, we see there are 33 devatas who are being manifested in the form of Yajna Varaha Murti. He is engaging in the manifestation part, and that part is associated with karma marga. I believe this is something that has been mentioned in the Bhavartha Deepika of Sridhara Swami. Coming back to this, we have laukika also. So this laukika srishti is what is associated with the manifestation of basic elements known as tattvas. This is based on the Kapilopadesha. So we see in the Bhagavata Purana, Maharshi Kapila, that is the Avatara Kapila, is teaching his own mother, Devahuti, the principles of Sankhya Shastra. This Sankhya Shastra was, I mean, we do not have any texts which were directly composed by Bhagavan Kapila, but what we do have is some of the earliest texts which were presented to us in terms of the Sankhya tradition itself. The earliest text that we currently have is the Sankhya Karika, which was given to us by Ishvara Krishna. Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karika also has many commentaries. You will notice that the Sankhya Karikas, whatever they present, are very beautifully understood and represented in the Yoga Sutras of Maharshi Patanjali, especially in the, I believe, the fourth chapter, the fourth pada. You will see a lot of these principles presented very beautifully. Anyway, I'm not going into the detail of the Yoga Shastra there, but what I'm trying to say here is the Laukika Srishti is associated with Kapilopadesha, and this is associated with the Jnana Marga. So Kapila himself talks about how this is directly associated with Jnana. This Jnana will help you sever your connection with Prakriti. I'll explain what that is right now. We see that in the context of Laukika Srishti, in the Bhagavata Purana, it says, Vishnu through Maya, or rather, Vishnu is making Maya. Maya is another name used for Prakriti. Prakriti is supposed to be the basic raw material for the building up of the entire universe. In the Sankhya Shastra, the name is Prakriti, or Mula Prakriti, or Avyakta. In other Shastras, that is especially in the Puranas, we see that there are different names given. Here, the name that is given here is Maya. Interestingly, if you are a student of Vedanta, you will notice that this Maya is a term which is also carried forward to Vedantic literature as well. Anyway, this Maya is actually unmanifest nature. This unmanifest nature is motivated by Vishnu to manifest itself. Along with Kala, that is the element of time, it is manifesting itself now from Avyakta, that is unmanifest form, imperceptible form. It is moving towards something known as Mahat. Mahat is considered to be the intelligence element, the element of intelligence. Mahat is also known as Mahan or Buddhi. This Mahan or Mahat or Buddhi later is again transforming into something known as Ahankara. The Ahankara is something that is associated with ego, that is I-ness. This is not associated with egoism or egotism, that is superiority complex. No, we are not talking about that egoism or egotism, which is also known as ahambhava. That is different. That is associated with a person's psychology. That is associated with the person's superiority complex. We are not talking about that. We are talking specifically about this sense of I-ness. I exist. So that I-ness. From ahankara, we get the bhutas, panchamahabhutas, the indriyas, the tanmatras, the manas. This is how it is presented. If you go to the Sankhya Shastra, that is Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karikas, you will see the order given in a very specific form. From the Ahankara, we will get Tanmatras and the Ekadasha Indriyas. From the Tanmatras, we will get the Panchamahabhutas. That is how it is ordered there. But I'm not going into the detail. If you know this, it is good. If you do not know, please don't worry too much about this entire list. Then, when you see Vishnu himself, he is supposed to manifest in three different forms. In one form, he is present inside the heart of every manifest being. In every creature, he is present inside. So he is present as the Angushta Matra Purusha inside every different being. That is, The one who is the size of a thumb inside everybody's heart, spiritual heart, he is present. Then he is present as 10 Vayus, Dasha Vayus, so are the Dasha Pranas. So if you have studied the Sankhya Shastra, you will realize that the Pancha Vayus are supposed to be the vrittis of the Antahkaranas. If you don't know what I'm speaking about, don't worry about it. It's all right. No problem. So the Dasha Vayus are present, Dasha Pranas. And then finally, we also have the three different forms. We have the Adhyatmika, Adhidaivika, and Adhibhautika forms of Sriman Narayana. This is what is presented in the Bhagavata Purana in terms of the Srishti section. Again, of course, there is some kind of a Virat Purusha which is being described. This is not a complete picture. It is only some kind of a representational nature. You will find something similar which is presented in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Vishwarupa Darshana is being shown to Arjuna. There we will see how each different part of the Virat Purusha is supposed to be some Devata being presented there. So some different Devata is presented. For example, you will see that in the face, in the mouth there is Agni, inside the mouth there is Jala, that is Varuna, and then in the nostrils we have the Ashwini Kumaras. Then the sense of direction is there inside the ears. Sun, Surya is present in the eyes. Chandra is present in the Manas, in the heart space. Indra is present in the hands. Vishnu is present in the legs. There is some kind of a new term that is coming up. See, we already know that this is about Vishnu, but again the word Vishnu comes in. So Vishnu is something that is related to Trivikrama form. We will talk about that later when time permits. Then there is Prajapati, who is present in the organ of procreation. Then the Devata called Mitra, who is present there. All these are presented. Brahmadeva, Rudradeva, all these different forms are also presented in the cosmic form. This is associated with Srishti. It is all associated with Srishti because the Virat Purusha is directly associated with Srishti. Then we move towards that same Virat Purusha. We see that this is called collective creation. It is both Chara and Achara forms, which are being facilitated by Parama Purusha. And because of the sense of karma, all the jivas are taking birth. And this manifestation is supposed to be majorly promoted by Brahmadeva or Brahmaji, Chaturmukha Brahma. When we move to Visarga, there are other ideas also presented in these two skandhas. I'm skipping this section because it is taking more time. Anyway, there is Sthiti section. In the context of Sthiti section, there is Sriman Narayana trying to maintain everything. So they are trying to maintain it. It is also known as Vritti. And for this maintenance part, there is some interesting idea here. This is where the concept of Varnashrama Dharma comes in. If you are interested in knowing more about this, I urge you to take up this Kandha and see what he's trying to say in terms of Varnashrama Dharma, because Vritti is associated with Sthiti itself. If you want to have maintenance of the cohesion or the harmony of the society, then the most important part is Vritti. That Vritti is associated with Varnashrama Dharma. So this Vritti is also known as Sthana or Sthiti. And then there is some kind of representation also that is also found in the Skandha regarding this, some kind of visual representation. That is a terrestrial globe as the support of the entire creation, that is entire manifestation. And then it is a representation of Sthiti itself. There is a globe that the Bhu Devi itself is shown as a globe, Bhu Gola. And then the next part is Poshana. There we see something to do with welfare of every being by Bhagavat Kripa. It is also known as Raksha in the 12th Skandha. In the 12th Skandha, there are apparently references to certain avatars. And in all avatars, we see that the enemies of the Vedas are killed, are destroyed. Veda Shatrus are all destroyed. And there is a specific reference to the concept of Pushti, that is Sriman Narayana's grace toward his devotees, bhaktas. So there is this reference to Ajamila. Then there is the reference to Vritrasura, who Vritrasura was originally a great Vishnu Bhakta by the name of Chitraketu. All those different concepts are also presented here. In the context of Laya, we see Laya meaning he is the final Ashraya or Apashraya. There is nothing else other than Brahman itself. And here in this context, in this Kandha, we see certain references to Shuka's teaching, Parikshit, different concepts, including the Brahma Vidya, which helps him to move towards moksha. Here there is an interesting reference to the 4 different types of Pralaya itself. So there is Prakritika Pralaya, Atyantika Pralaya, Nitya Pralaya, and Naimitika Pralaya. So Prakritika is the end of Brahmadeva, Chaturmukha Brahma's lifetime. Atyantika pralaya refers to the end of samsara for any person, for a jiva itself. When that person is going to experience moksha, that is Atyantika pralaya. Nitya pralaya, this is a reference to certain concepts which certain people are referring to. It is not elaborated in this section in the Bhagavata Purana. And there is Naimittika pralaya, that is the end of certain time period. So there will be Srishti. After that, there is Sthiti. After a period of time, for some duration, there will be pralaya. Again, it will be Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. This entire cycle will happen, and there is Naimittika Pralaya from time to time. And that entire cycle will have one Prakritika Pralaya, that is Brahmaji's life is ended. So again, there will be a new Brahmaji. At that point of time, again, another Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya will happen. So if you are someone who is familiar with the concept of economics and how this entire cycle of inflation happens and how the value of currency keeps changing, you will notice that there will be some a pattern. There will be every time the value of currency comes down, there is some kind of a change. It will not come down to zero. There will be some change. It will come down. Economy will fall down. Again, it will rise. Again, it will come down. Again, it will rise. In the same way, Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya are also going through some kind of a phase. It is like a phase which keeps on continuing. So, I'm sure some of you are very happy because I have now come to the conclusion slide. So, the conclusion slide, we should remember that Puranas are fundamental to understanding the traditional Indic worldview of the universe. So if you want to understand the entire worldview, the simplest and the easiest way to go towards that would be to start with Itihasa and Purana. Of course, people might say Purana is enough or Itihasa is enough. I will say that both have to be clubbed together. Itihasa, Purana, both can be explored if you want to study or understand the traditional Indic worldview of the universe. There is a lot of ideas. There's a corpus of ideas which are presented there, and there is a lot of intertextuality. I told you about intertextuality, how there is interconnections, continuous interconnections, which are giving you scope for so much of research. There's a lot of work that can be done. But most importantly, if you want to engage in this work, we should remember that the jnana which you wish to accumulate or whatever you wish to learn has to have three important elements. You should have adhyayana, meaning traditional study. There needs to be anusthana, that is the traditional practice, some kind of a spiritual practice must be there. And there needs to be gaveshana, independent research must be done continuously. If you do not have any one of these elements, that jnana which you will get will be incomplete. There will be some kind of a problem. There will be holes which you have to fill, and these holes cannot be filled very easily. You should have a continuous process of adhyayana, gaveshana, and anusthana to have that jnana. If you want to have access to jnana, these three are very important. Adhyayana meaning traditional study, anusthana meaning traditional practice of spiritual nature, gaveshana meaning research. You have to pursue this properly. With that, I will close here. Thank you so much. Dhanyavadaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Namaste ji. Thank you so much for the insightful session. And the way you categorized in terms of gunas, it was really interesting. Sorry, I joined bit 10 minutes late in the session. So now we are open for any questions if you have.
Actually, I think we do have a few questions in the chat box. I'll just read those out. I think there's a question from Tarun Gupta ji. In Sankhya, is role of Bhagwan accepted or is it Nirishwara?
So this is something historically very much explored. I cannot give you all the details because it will require references to all the textual data. And I do not have them present with me right now to show you on the screen. But what I can tell you is there are different approaches to Sankhya Shastra. In some references, the traditional popular references, you will find it will be Nirishwara. There is no role of Bhagavan which is referred to. But in certain references, I believe, I have not checked these texts myself to know exactly what they're talking about. But certain texts apparently talk about Seshwara Sankhya. So there is a reference to Ishvara directly involved in the Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. But when it comes to Sankhya itself, we see that irrespective of the role played by Ishvara, the effort taken by the individual sadhaka is far more important. So the Purusha, the sadhaka himself or herself has to put in more effort to accumulate this jnana, to be what you call severed. The connection with Prakriti has to be severed by the individual. There is no sudden involvement of the Ishvara itself.
Ji Acharya, I think we have one more question by Tej G. So, what quality makes a Purana Uttama or Adhama?
So here the reference for Uttama, Adhama or Madhyama is associated with the amount of Sattva Guna or whatever Guna is there. So in terms of the amount of Sattva Guna one can develop by studying this Purana, if it is more magnitude, then it is Uttama. It is of medium magnitude, it is Madhyama. If it is of minimal magnitude, it is of Adhama nature. It does not mean that you should not study. You can study. It does not directly affect the purpose. It is about, see, when you want to have a medicine, you have different concentrations. Low concentration, low dose medicine will have lesser effect. High concentration will have, high dosage will have higher effect, immediate effect. So depending on what is needed, the doctor will give you. In the same way, depending on your need, based on what you are capable of doing, based on your adhikara, meaning what your eligibility is. According to that, the acharya will give you what is necessary for you. That is what we should remember. It does not mean that you should stop reading whatever Purana you are reading or whatever Purana you are doing Parayana of. It does not mean you should stop. Whatever you are doing, you continue doing. But remember that these principles also are explored in the Puranas themselves, and that the Acharya will give you, Acharya or Guru will come and give you whatever is relevant for your case.
I think we have one more question, that is, can you explain Gaveshana?
Gaveshana is basically research. So you see, there is a big issue that we are currently facing when it comes to Indian knowledge systems. Firstly, the major problem that we are facing is that we are not connecting with our own native languages. Unfortunately, I am forced to talk to you in English, which is not a native language. That is a different story. But only if I speak in English, most of the audience will understand. Therefore, I am using it. It is only a tool for me. But most of my work happens only in Sanskritam or any other local Indian language. So firstly, most of us have disconnected ourselves from our native indigenous languages. So the solution is to go towards our own mother tongues and local indigenous languages. Number two, apart from the language itself, we have disconnected ourselves from the traditional native scripts which we have been using, the lipi, the sampradayika lipi for each language we have stopped using. That we have to revive. We have to revive our ability to use these scripts for our work. Number three, we have forgotten which tradition we follow. There are Shaivas, Vaishnavas, Shaktas, you can be Sauras, you can be Kaumara, you can be Vainayika, anything. You can be any Sampradaya. We have forgotten what Sampradaya we are from. So we have to revive that. That itself is part of research. So first is the language, second is the script, the third one is the tradition that we belong to. The fourth one is we have to see if we can study these texts with some acharya, with the guidance of some teacher. So that also we have forgotten. We have stopped doing this. So we have to go and find some teacher, somebody, even if it is a Purohita, at least learn something, some Archaka from temple. You may have some person who is doing puja there. You can ask them, please teach me something. If there is somebody who has studied a lot but is actually in poverty, you can go and ask them, please teach me something. All this can be done. It is all feasible. It's just that we are a little lazy or we are a little ignorant about what are the different options which are available for us. So the last thing that we should remember is that after all of this is being done, we should also realize that we have to take it to the next step. We have to start generating content. See, for example, this subject which I have presented here, I have never presented it anywhere else. I don't know if anybody else has even written something like this. So I have just read a few pages, maybe a couple, maybe 100 pages I have read, and I have presented a set of slides for you. So all of this which I have presented for you, I don't know if it is there anywhere else. So in the same way, you should also start putting in effort in the dissemination of this information that you have studied, either in the form of classes that you can teach, or you can help somebody who is teaching, or you yourself can start writing about it. Learn something, write blogs. Maybe learn something, make vlogs. Learn something, speak in podcasts. You should try to push more about all of this. All of this will be part of research dissemination. So this is a simple way if you want to understand what Gaveshana is.
Yeah, I think Tarunji have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Vinodji. It is really very knowledgeable session. I just have a few question. One is that the Purana has the Itihas we understood is something which has actually happened. What I have heard or read that Purana have some allegorical meanings. They might not be exactly to be taken as it is, or like the Itihasa.
Yes, yes.
So
In
yeah,
my personal opinion, based on my research, I realized that both Itihasa and Purana have the same nature. Generally, people assume that everything which is presented in Itihasa or Purana or just Itihasa is just historical documentation. See, please understand that Itihasa is partially historical documentation, but we do not uh, see only historical documentation presented in Itihasa and Purana. In some parts of Itihasa and Purana, we will see certain details given in terms of description of nature, description of beauty, description of everyday life. Then there will be some kind of a description of sadhana, description of what kind of meditation to do, what kind of mantra you have to chant, description of how to donate, how to do dana, description of how to do Tirtha Yatra. All of these things are also presented in Itihasa and Purana, both, not just only in Itihasa or only in Purana. Both Itihasa and Purana contain all these details. So what happens is when you start studying the Itihasa or Purana, any of these texts, you will realize that you are not only learning about a story of something that happened, not just story, let's call it Katha. Katha is different, story is different. Story means it may be fictional. Katha means something that has been narrated. So Katha literally means that which is said, that which is narrated. So it can be any narration. I am not bothered about whether it historically happened or not. But what is important is when I start reading or studying that narration, I realize that there are certain elements which are directly associated with my ancestors. So even though I may say, see, maybe you are not Raghuvamshi, but still Rama is our ancestor. When I say Rama, I am filled with emotion. Even though I may not come in that same direct lineage, the moment I say Rama, I am remembering all the qualities of Rama. So when I remember all these qualities, it's not just a historical documentation. I'm also remembering what to do for my own personality. I'm also learning what kind of things I have to implement in my own life so that I can be a better person, so that I can be a good contributor to the society. So it is not only associated with history, it has relations with psychology. It has relations with your own sadhana. There are certain elements of yoga which are presented there. There are certain elements of Darshana Shastra which are presented there. In certain places, you will find definitions of certain concepts presented in a beautiful way. In certain places, you will find descriptions of places which still apply today. There are so many books which have been written regarding the places that Rama visits on his way back to Ayodhya and how all of this is still relevant today. There are references or rather books which have been written regarding what kind of uh, flora and fauna existed during the time of Ramayana and still they exist today in Bharata. So in this way, we are not only learning about some random person who lived many thousands of years ago or even centuries ago, we are also learning about our own country. We are learning about our own people. We are learning about our own mind. We are learning about everything to do with ourselves. Every single aspect of our personality today, both physical, social, cultural, educational, everything, all elements are learned when you start studying Itihasa and Purana. It's just the starting point.
So yeah, we have two more questions. We'll just take that up and then we can end.
Oh, sure. Uh,
I think Chetna ji had a question. So what is Sampradaya and what if in case if we don't know our sampradaya or if we are not following currently, then what can we do?
I know what Chetna is trying to ask. There are many people, because of our limitations, we do not know what sampradaya we belong to or what our family was practicing for many generations because of the colonizers' impact. So because of this, we may be thrown away from our native land. We are sometimes thrown away from our native practices. Sometimes even the devatas associated with the murtis, the devata murtis, maybe in the Salagrama murti form or the Banalinga murti form, something that our ancestors used to worship no longer are present with us. So what we should remember is that we have to start somewhere. So if you are not able to find your own sampradaya, first you try to find out who is your Ishta Devata and start there. With that Ishta Devata, there will be some sampradaya associated with your own region, your own place, which is your native place. You will have something to do with that Ishta Devata, and you will notice that for some reason it will be captivating for you. And slowly, when you start studying, when you start learning, when you start practicing, you will realize that you will actually belong to that sampradaya whichever your ancestors were practicing. So whatever they belonged to. So this is something that is happening naturally. I can only say that the flow will help you. It's something that requires a lot of patience and a lot of unshakable confidence. Shraddha is necessary. But start somewhere. Start with some Ishta Devata, then it will work.
Sure, I have one more last question. That is, what is pralaya? Please
Pralaya,
explain
see,
for us.
basically it is dissolution. Dissolution meaning, see, when you have a piece of ice that you took out of the refrigerator, or maybe you just think about ice cream. Ice cream currently, maybe you have some chocobar or some cornetto, you have it in your hand, it is in some shape. It is in the shape of a cone or in the shape of some specific cuboid. So the moment this temperature changes, what happens? It becomes watery. It will start melting. So what has happened here is that when you took that ingredient, all the raw material for making the ice cream, you mixed everything and then you cooled it down and brought it to a shape. That is the srishti of the ice cream. And then how do you make the sthiti of the ice cream? You keep it in the refrigerator. And what happens when you keep it, take it outside the refrigerator or there is no current, there is no power supply, immediately there is laya of that ice cream. In the same way, the raw material for the entire universe is found in the form of prakriti. It is made in the form of sattva, rajas, and tamas gunas. These are the three gunas. These three gunas are in a form which is not observable. When it comes to Srishti state, everything will start combining together, everything will start becoming observable. And then when it is in Sthiti state, everything will stay. It will be a little slow when it comes to destruction or dissolution, not destruction, only dissolution, but it will stay in some form. And after that, there is laya. What is this laya or pralaya? Basically, it is moving back to its original raw material state. That's all. As simple as that.
Thank you, Abhinavji. And also, I know that we have exceeded, but I think we all collectively can agree that this session was really interesting. So we were very excited to, go beyond the timings as well. And thank you so much, Abhinavji, for explaining and answering all the questions. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending the session. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much for simplifying the terms. It was really nice.
Yeah.
The explanation of ice cream, and this is like I heard this first time. We can also use it. And thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule. And we hope you'll be guiding us and with your wisdom in future as well. Dhanyavadaha. So we will meet tomorrow for the session on Shiva Purana. Dhanyavadaha. Namaste. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Gurubhyo Namaha Punarmilam.